Nicolas Sebastian Anelka was born in Le Chesnay, Yvelines of northern France on the 14th of March 1979. He grew up in the Parisian suburbs of Trapez, an area of the city that was deprived and rough. Though the teenager was one of PSG's brightest young stars, his future didn't lie in his hometown, and with only 10 Ligue 1 appearances to his name, he transferred to London, signing for Arsenal's new French boss, Arsène Wenger. Acquired for a mere £500,000 at the tail end of the 1996-97 campaign, his opportunity to showcase his talents to the English audience came in the next season. Things began well for the Frenchman, opening his Arsenal account in November 1997 with an important goal in their 3-2 victory over Manchester United.
And Anelka has a go and scores!
By May, he had added 5 goals and 6 assists to his total, exuding confidence in Wenger's free-flowing system as a tall, powerful and alarmingly quick young striker who feared no opponent. His first full year in Highbury culminated in Arsenal's double win of the League and FA Cup, in the final of which Anelka scored, gaining him admiration from the fans, who dubbed him Super Nick.
No catching him!
Considering the French Revolution of Arsenal going on at the time, the team looked set to prosper in the north of the capital, but the media recognised a cause for concern. There was a dreary lack of energy in the forward, and he often wore a joyless expression on the pitch, contrasting starkly to Wright's jubilance as the people's champ. Though it was likely down to the young man's homesickness while adjusting to his new life, the English media chose to lambast him as a spoiled sportsman who exemplified all that was wrong with the new wealth of the Premier League. After a slow start, Anelka went on to have a prolific year, putting away 7 goals as Arsenal's top scorer across all competitions, including a hat-trick versus Leicester and superlative strikes to overcome Everton and West Ham.
It's still Anelka.
Supported by Dennis Bergkamp, he couldn't do much wrong on the pitch, whereas off it, in front of a microphone or a note-taking journalist, Anelka always seemed to say the wrong things. Bored in London, excluded by his Dutch teammates, and regularly suffering panic attacks, Anelka announced his desire to make a move, convinced that he won't see his contract through. Now labelled Le Sulk, the press had won the battle, and Anelka cited the media as the cause of his misery while at a club that he later claimed to love. Off the back of a breakthrough spell that saw him named PFA Young Player of the Year, Real Madrid's £23.5 million bid laid a path away from England, departing the country with some distasteful words about the Gunners. It's often misconstrued that Thierry Henry, who joined as Anelka left, was his replacement, when Wenger actually wanted to pair the Frenchman in attack, a thrilling thought that still pains Arsenal fans to this day. In Spain, his habituating period was extensive, failing to get on the scoresheet in the first 5 months of his debut La Liga season, and behind the scenes, tensions were building. The prodigy's transfer was criticised internally by some of the club's long-term Spaniards, who perceived the new striker as an insulting threat to Fernando Morientes, the club's main man up top. Again, the media was his enemy. The Spanish sporting tabloid Marca mocked him for his lack of goals, and he was slammed by the press and fans alike. Finally, he managed to start his scoring for Los Blancos, with goals in the Club World Cup in January of the new millennium, before a month later putting away his first in the Spanish top flight, aiding Real to an El Clasico triumph. Shortly after shining brightly, shade followed. Club president Lorenzo Sanz suspended Anelka once he refused to train after an argument with head coach Vicente del Bosque, and accusing his teammates of treating him like a dog. Upon his return to the squad, he vitally scored home and away against Bayern Munich in the Champions League, which won them a spot in the final. He started against Valencia and stayed on for most of the match, which Madrid easily won, a cherry on top of a messy campaign for the Frenchman. The match was held at the Stade de France, reminding Anelka of what he had left behind. and he was driven away from the Bernabeu after one tortuous season, making a homecoming to PSG in the summer of 2000. His boosted global reputation prompted Roger Lemaire to make him a regular in the qualifying for Euro 2000, and in the end, a spot in the tournament. 2 assists from 3 starts dropped him down the pecking order for the final, during which he never left the bench as Les Bleus overcame Italy through David Trezeguet's golden goal. On the search for a new beginning, the Ligue 1 runners-up welcomed him with open arms, making the European champion captain straight away, and the number 9 got off to an encouraging start, bagging 6 goals in 4 consecutive September matches. Sailing to the top of the table, all seemed well for Anelka and his parent club, until that winter when a string of awful results led to a managerial change and Luis Fernandez took over. A policy had been introduced to integrate more young local talents into the squad, which Anelka noted as a key reason for his return. However, 3 months into his second spell, the policy was ignored and Fernandez changed the whole team. The skipper blamed their 9th place league finish on these changes, and he fell out with the manager, noting that he was impossible to talk to. The striker had been far from his expected best, scoring merely 18 times in 60 matches, and Anelka was jettisoned after 18 months in Paris, having publicly insulted Fernandez. To escape Paris gradually became the forward's priority, and Liverpool offered him a short-term loan deal in December 2001 to see out the season. It was a very quiet English return for the former Arsenal sensation, unimpressively averaging a goal every 5 matches, and subsequently Gerard Houllier opted against presenting Anelka a permanent contract, as the striker wished. The toxic English press that had hounded Anelka before launched another assault, calling the rejected striker a mercenary with great potential that he was now too old to ever reach. As the season began, their cruel words seemed fair, as Anelka was off the books for the Reds and without a new club. Kevin Keegan broke Manchester City's transfer record in May 2002, bringing him to Main Road for £13 million, where he found a home as the Sky Blues' main man. In unexceptional surroundings of a newly promoted team, Anelka was presented with a chance to salvage his fading confidence, bringing joy to the humble citizens with 14 goals in his first Mancunian year. Memorable moments included a goal in their 3-1 Intercity derby victory and a winning brace over Liverpool, showing glimpses of the old powerful Anelka, now with multi-league experience. City was never going to be the place to stack up his trophy cabinet, but for 2 consecutive seasons he was the club's top scorer, hitting a personal best 24 goals across all competitions in 2003-04. A departure from the elite European clubs seemed to have worked a treat for the Parisian, re-establishing his reputation as a top-level marksman who could stand shoulder to shoulder with the best of the Premier League. His time out of the blinding lights was refreshing, and the peripatetic striker made an odd choice for his next transfer, Turkey's Super League champions Fenerbahçe. Many took this to mean that the 25-year-old had ultimately retired his plausible ambition to be a star of a major European division. He didn't set the world alight in Istanbul, as many would have expected, considering his obvious natural ability against lower-level opposition, but with 7 goal contributions from January 2005, he helped retain the title. Calf strains and knee problems disturbed his second year, left out 9 times and reduced to only 23 league starts, from which he managed to rack up 16 goal contributions. Often deployed on the right wing, Anelka proved his versatility, and his overall tally by the end of his time in Turkey read that he'd only scored 1 more goal than the amount he'd assisted. It was becoming clear that Anelka had a bit of an anti-authority complex, refusing an emergency call-up after making no appearances in Euro 2002, for which he was barred by Jacques Santini. When the next 2 World Cups rolled around, Anelka wasn't selected, despite the change in management, due to his transfer choices and notoriously troublesome character. His refusal to stay at a club for more than 2 years was now becoming a theme, and the number 39 reverted to Manchester, this time to Bolton Wanderers' Reebok Stadium, which again dumbfounded all. The 28-year-old wasn't an ageing player in the twilight of his career, but a man who needed to prove himself if he was ever going to hit his zenith that the world was waiting to see. 11 league appearances in, with no goal to his name, led the English onlookers to feel as if Anelka would again flop in the critical moment of his career, and the predatory media were licking their lips at the thought of the headlines celebrating his ruin. It was against his old familiar friend Arsene Wenger that he broke this drought, with a pair of emphatic strikes in late November, stealing all the points for the Trotters while further tarnishing his relationship with all that is Arsenal. Bolton were now able to finally exhale, reassured that they hadn't broken their club record transfer fee on a useless player, as Anelka jump-started his campaign and added 9 more to his goal count by May. Having proved that he has what it takes, Anelka in the new year of 2007 stated that he would be willing to make an Arsenal comeback after the summer. 7th place was more than respectable for a side of Bolton's calibre, and the Frenchman stayed in Greater Manchester into the 2007-08 season as the standout of the Wanderers. A new 4-year contract was presented to the striker, which he signed in August, pledging himself to the club until 2011. Clearly, no such return to North London came about, yet results for the Northerners were painfully unrewarding, and though Anelka was achieving some of his best numbers ever, he could no longer pull them out of the mud. Another successful club, hailing from the capital, interjected at the January halfway point, giving the 30-year-old an exit route from mediocrity and a chance to join a serious title challenger in Chelsea. The likes of Didier Drogba, Andrei Shevchenko and Salomon Kalou gave fierce competition for the number 9 spot. Therefore, Avram Grant dropped Anelka on the wing or in support of the centre-forward. For this reason, only 1 goal came his way throughout the 5 months of his first season.
His first Premier League goal for his new club.
However, his 5 assists indicated the sort of player he would have to settle with being at the well-stocked Chelsea. The West Londoners had powered their way through the knockout stage of the Champions League, edging their way past Liverpool in the semis to match Manchester United in the first ever all-English final. This time, he was benched from the start and watched on as the game was extended into extra time, when Grant quickly subbed him on for Joe Cole with 20 minutes left to play. From the right flank, he couldn't impose his influence in this short time, and the score remained at 1-1 as the clock hit the 120th minute, leaving it to penalties to decide the champion of Europe. Following John Terry's slip and penalty miss, Anelka stepped up to take the 7th spot kick, needing to convert it just to stay in. In what is surely his darkest on-pitch moment, his effort was guessed by Van der Sar and thrust wide, taking a 3rd European Cup back to Old Trafford. Later, the blame that Anelka was hit with was passed to Grant, who the Frenchman said gave him no chance to fully warm up or prepare, and that the mere 20 minutes he was given wasn't ample time to adjust to the pressure of the match. Raymond Domenech, the new French head coach, had been impressed by Anelka and recalled him for the 2008 European Championships, but in Austria and Switzerland, France failed to escape the group stage. The beginning of his first full season with Chelsea was surprisingly freeing for Anelka, who, with Drogba out injured and Shevchenko back in Milan, was now the centre-forward, relied on for goals, which he delivered in spades. The quality that supported Anelka enabled him to thrive. His runs were answered with the perfect delivery, and when all he had to do was beat the keeper, the striker's stats rapidly increased. A prolific November saw him find the back of the net 7 times in just 3 matches, with a hat-trick and 2 braces. From November onwards, his scoring gradually slowed, as the Ivorian returned to the regular starting 11. Nevertheless, Anelka finished the season as Chelsea's star, with not only the most goals for the Blues, but with 19 in 35 appearances, the most in the division, earning the Premier League Golden Boot. Another FA Cup winner's medal found its way around Anelka's neck in the summer, his first English silverware since 1998, and still more was soon approaching. 2009-10 was the Frenchman's first full year alongside Drogba, and the pair were instantly lethal. Whether Anelka was the wide provider for the African, or they divided a central strike force, the pair produced goals at a rate that drove Carlo Ancelotti's formidable Chelsea to the summit of the table. The Parisian hit 21 goal contributions, while Drogba amassed 29 league goals, breaking some notable Premier League records, including most goals in a season with 103. By 1 point, they tipped Man United for the Premiership, before 6 days later beating Portsmouth for a second successive FA Cup, closing off the most successful season in Chelsea's history.
It's Chelsea's first double.
The South African 2010 World Cup was the chance for a player at the peak of his powers to make a statement on his long-awaited return to a tournament with his national side. After importantly scoring in their qualifying playoff match, which got Les Bleus to Africa, they drew to Uruguay in the opening match, and at half-time in the second fixture, all hell broke loose. Desperately needing to win for a better chance to progress, the game was goalless and Anelka barely had a touch of the ball. Allegedly, he strongly insulted Dominic with a string of epithets in the changing room, criticising his management in a game they would go on to lose 2-0 on the road to group stage elimination. This mattered none to Anelka, who was booted from the squad and sent home, later refusing to publicly apologise as the president of the French Football Federation requested, for which he received an 18-match ban. This marked the miserable end of a very underwhelming international career for Anelka, riddled with fallouts and only appearing in 3 tournaments across a 12-year span. Anelka had replicated the double he achieved with Arsenal over a decade prior, and he seemingly hit his prime, shutting down the media. His fine form in the blue shirt continued into 2011, once again finishing the year with the most goals across all contests combined. However, Ancelotti's team had a less rewarding time, and he was sacked by the opening day of the new season. An equalising strike versus West Brom during their second Premier League match would prove to be his final goal for Chelsea, as he endured a 14-game goalless run before handing in a transfer request in December. After rejecting PSG for a third debut, Anelka accepted an offer to join Chinese club Shanghai Shenhua for a yearly wage worth €12 million. The Chinese Super League didn't do much to invigorate the 33-year-old, especially when added to the coaching staff while still a player to help the struggling manager. After a strong argument with some travelling fans in June 2012, he pushed for a move back to England, but settled for Italy's Scudetto holders Juventus. Calf disruptions drastically cut his game time to just 2 goalless Serie A appearances, and as the loan died out and his retirement warning light came on, a final surge for Premier League football was made. A fierce storm ensued his 2013 Premier League return in the blue and white stripes of West Bromwich Albion. Within a month, he walked out of a training session following his agent's passing, threatening to retire, but returned to the squad to score his first 2 goals for the Baggies versus West Ham. His celebration for which stirred controversy, performing a hand gesture called the Canal, which looked to some like a Nazi salute, and his possibly anti-Semitic action was investigated by the FA. In February 2014, he was handed a 5-game ban, fined £80,000 and ordered to complete an educational course. Yet, the FA acknowledged that he wasn't anti-Semitic and the celebration was misinterpreted. Whether we ever saw the best possible Anelka is forever a mystery. Those early peaks at the natural flair of the adolescent striker under the floodlights of Highbury would suggest that his full potential would have been devastating. Sprinting past defenders with the velocity of a stallion, he possessed all the traits of a modern striker, particularly gifted with a mighty wand of a right foot. Even at Chelsea and Bolton, where many would argue they saw the prime of Anelka, he was not far from a perfect Premier League centre-forward, whose stature, coupled with everything else, made him unplayable on his day. But therein lies the point. Anelka's day should have been seen far more frequently. Away from the field, he really battled with all the distractions and individually poor spells with the big dogs of Europe, dragged his confidence through the dirt, eventually resorting to lower level sides to rebuild his self-esteem during the years that many players hit their peak. Branded from an early age a moody prima donna who brought talent but trouble, many managers avoided him and major club owners didn't want the hassle. A Premier League centurion with league titles and cups, a Champions League trophy and European Championship to boast, doesn't seem at surface level to be the deserving subject of pity, although compared to his more successful contemporaries, the supremely skilled Nicolas Anelka could have been so much more.